7-round mock draft for your Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's get it. Now, before we get into this mock, guys, don't take this mock too seriously, okay? I'm just doing a mock draft for the fun of it and kind of sharing my results. I am definitely not a draft expert or a draft prospect expert. The market is so saturated with those people where, honestly, I don't even try that hard anymore. Once the Jaguars get their draft pieces, I will talk about it, see how they fit in on a team, and then we will move forward, and we're going to really focus internally on how the Jaguars can get better as opposed to studying all these different entities from outside the organization right now. So with all that said, pick number 17 overall. You know, this is very, very widely debated, but I think of all the realistic options, I think that if Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU, was there at this spot, I think that this will be the pick. I know people read things different ways, and I just feel like this whole entire, really ever since losing Calvin Ridley, it just seems like there's been a lot of smoke when it comes to the Jaguars really wanting to get aggressive and bringing in a top-end wide receiver. And, you know, I know cornerback is being debated a lot here. I just feel like, and I've said this before, the Jaguars need an elite receiver, and the Jaguars need a good cornerback. Because I feel like Tyson Campbell is one of the better cornerbacks in the league, but I'm not so sure if we have any wide receiver we can call the best in the league. I mean, Christian Kirk might be up there amongst slot receivers, and Evan Ingram is up there amongst, you know, tight ends when it comes to receiving threats. But when on the outside, I just don't think that the Jaguars, you know, really have that. And I think that will take our offense to a whole nother level. And Brian Thomas Jr. is the guy. He is 6'4". He is extremely speedy. He's got extremely good burst and acceleration. He'll be able to win on the outside and also be able to take a slant 60 yards to the house. And, you know, a lot of people kind of tier these different wide receivers. I'll be honest with you, I don't think Brian Thomas Jr. is that much off of the very top tier of wide receivers in this draft. You know, I think it's probably, you know, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors, and then Brian Thomas Jr. is right there right after them. So that is one that I would be really excited if the Jaguars came away with. Of course, he needs to improve his route tree, but I think the body of work is something that will be really, really good for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So at pick number 17, I had the Jaguars selecting Brian Thomas Jr. And by the way, guys, this video is sponsored by BetUS. And you guys know on BetUS, you can actually bet on who you guys think the Jaguars will take with their very first pick. The longest odds include quarterback at plus 20,000, which is actually tied for kicker, punter, and long snapper. But the best odds are wide receiver and cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars here, if you are so interested in placing a bet. Now, BetUS is the #1 sport book, and they are going to match your first 3 deposits by 125% up to $2,500. That means that you can turn $500 into $1,250, and also BetUS has 24/7 customer service and also quick 24-hour payouts. So I have the link in the description right down below if you guys want to take advantage. And we're also giving away $125 in free play. So the first 5 people to DM me with their account information, you are going to be loaded up with $25 in your account that you can have a little bit of fun with on draft night. And with all that said, let's get a quick word from BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
So at pick number 48 in the second round, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Jonah Ellis, edge rusher from Utah. And I really don't think that the Jaguars' need at edge rusher is being talked about enough. At least I'm not seeing it enough. I'm not listening to a lot of sports radio these days and all that stuff. But I'm just noticing on Twitter, you know, last year the Jaguars, of course, had Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, who each had good years. But I think the Jaguars made a huge mistake by not bringing in a backup edge rusher like, you know, bringing in a Leonard Floyd or Jadeveon Clowney to the unit. And the Jaguars only came away with 3 sacks from their backup edges. And the Jaguars this year don't have Chason and don't have Smoot and wound up signing Travis Gibson to a 1-year, $1 million deal. So that unit is far from fixed. And you need to have a guy that comes in there and helps the rotation. You know, losing Arden Key was a real miss for us back in 2023, and we still need to fix that position. And really, I think bringing in a guy like Jonah Ellis, he'll be a pure situational pass rusher his first year, and he's already got really good pass rushing technique in there. You know, he's a quick, flexible player. He's also very shifty, and he just has a really good instinct of getting around offensive tackles, but he does need to build up on his strength. So, you know, stopping the run might not be very good for him in his first year, but like I said, situational pass rusher, let him develop his strength and, you know, let him develop some of his tools when it comes to that. And then hopefully in year 2, he can kind of accelerate. So at pick number 48, I have the Jaguars selecting Jonah Ellis, edge out of Utah. Now, next up in round 3, I have the Jaguars selecting Cooper Beebe, guard from Kansas State. Now, I feel like I come away with Cooper Beebe in a lot of my mock drafts. I just really like the guy. Our interior offensive line situation is kind of patched together by duct tape at this point. Of course, you gave Ezra Cleveland an extension to be your left guard for the next several years. And, you know, maybe he's a mainstay at the position, but he's certainly no upper echelon player. But you have Mitch Morse on a 2-year deal because you missed on Luke Fortner. And you also have right guard Brandon Sheriff, who is still trudging along, but he's getting slower and older and more injured as we speak. So it really just doesn't feel like we have many building blocks or many real players of the future at the interior offensive line. And we're one injury away from kind of being in panic mode there. And we all know how often offensive linemen get injured in the NFL, and we need a good insurance case. And with Cooper Beebe, you know, he has a lot of position flexibility. He's played left tackle, right tackle, and most recently left guard, and he does project as a really good guard in the NFL, so you can kind of train him to be kind of a swing guard, you know, if Sheriff goes down, play right guard. If Ezra Cleveland goes down, he plays left guard. And look, he's a guy that has great fundamentals. He also has awesome football IQ. Now, he's not the most athletic and he's not the most explosive off the snap, but he grades really well in both run and pass blocking, and he's really consistent with his grades on PFF. So I think if you're to be able to come away with a guy like Cooper Beebe in the 3rd round, that would be a real home run. And, you know, these are 2 different trench guys that we're coming away with in the first 2 days of the draft. And, you know, when I came away from last season, I was like, man, the Jaguars need to develop the trenches. And the Jaguars really didn't do a whole lot of that. I mean, outside of Eric Armstead and Mitch Morse, not really much there. And I think you need to continue to get better at each side of the lines on your team. Now, next up, at pick number 114 in the 4th round, I finally have the Jaguars taking cornerback, and I have the Jaguars taking quarterback Jarvis Brown Jr. He's a cornerback from Louisville. Now, he is definitely a little bit undersized at 5'10", but he's just a really good man coverage cornerback, and he also plays a really, really nasty player when you actually watch him. I mean, he is a tenacious guy. You can tell he loves the game of football, and he's an extremely willing player in run support, and just has really good ball skills and run ability. And honestly, I think in the future he might project really well as a nickel cornerback. And honestly, nickel cornerback is an extremely important position in the NFL. I mean, the final 4 teams in the playoffs this year all had really, really good nickel cornerbacks. And when you look at the position, you know, first of all, when you look at the outside cornerback spots, I mean, you pretty much have the boundary on this side and you have a lot of field on that side. But if you're a nickel cornerback, you have a lot of green grass on each side of you. And also you're closer to the running back, which means that you're closer to, being able to tackle a guy out of the backfield. So it's a really important spot. And, I think with his abilities, he could be a really good nickel cornerback, or he could, develop well on the outside. But either way, you have a pretty good chess piece to kind of play at whatever his strength may be going forward. So, with that said, I think Jarvis Brownlee at pick number 114 in the 4th round could be a real home run for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars very, very quickly have another pick, 2 picks after pick number 114 at pick number 116, and we're going back to the trenches. I'm taking tackle Christian Jones out of Texas. Now, there's a player I'm surprised isn't getting a little more hype. I mean, he is a really strong player, really long arms, and like, while he might not be like overly athletic right now, he is just a really, really strong player. And, I think he projects really well as a good right tackle. And, potentially if you're going to roll forward with Cam Robinson or Walker Little at left tackle in 2024, you can have, Christian Jones kind of develop behind a Anton Harrison to kind of take over potentially in 2025. So that's something to think about for sure. Or you can kind of develop him as a swing tackle, just whatever he kind of does. And, he does get lost in space a little bit, so he has to develop a little bit there. But, he could also potentially move the inside because, like I said, we could definitely continue to develop on the inside. And I think getting a big-bodied, strong player would not hurt the Jaguars in the least bit. So next pick, number 153 in the 5th round, the Jaguars selecting Tyler Davis, Clemson defensive tackle. Now, the Jaguars, I think, keep bolstering up these trenches. I mean, if you're noticing, 4 out of my 6 positions I've drafted here have been in the trenches, and I just think it's very important that the Jaguars keep fortifying that because we got straight up pushed around and bullied on each side of the lines in this last year. And with Tyler Davis, he's an extremely explosive player on the line of scrimmage, and he's a really good run stopper. Now, he can definitely develop a little bit more when it comes to pass rushing techniques, but I think he could be a pretty good player on run downs, and I think he could be a good developmental player. And he's a guy that has a really strong bull rush, and when you look at him on tape, he really is just able to stand up guards, and you can tell that he's a very strong player. Now, the big thing about him is that he does have an injury history, which drops him down a little bit. Missed a lot of games from 2020 to 2022, but with that said, in the 5th round, I'd be more than willing to take a shot on this guy. Now, next up, round 6, pick 212. I don't think I do any mock drafts without us taking a kicker, and I have this taking kicker Will Reichert out of Alabama. And look, there's going to be a team that drafts a kicker and maybe multiple teams that draft kicker. And I hope that the Jaguars are the very first team to do it because the kicker position has not been kind to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the last few years. Of course, we had our good run with Josh Scobie, and then we had Jason Myers kind of sketch out a little bit. Then we had Josh Lambo for a good period of time. And then Urban Meyer kicked in a kicking curse to the Jacksonville Jaguars, as I think we had like 4 or 5 kickers in 2021. And then in 2022, we had Riley Patterson, who was good, but you couldn't rely on him for more than 50 yards, and he couldn't kick the touchbacks. And in 2023, you had Brandon McManus, who did not work out. And then in the 2024 offseason, we tried to give the New Orleans Saints kicker, who is on the Will Lutz, we tried to give him like a 3-year deal or something like that. He accepted, then he rejected, and then we still have Riley Patterson around. We signed Joey Slye to a 1-year deal. Honestly, it's just a mess at the position right now. So the Jaguars need to be able to make their kicks, and also there's a new kickoff rule being implemented this year. So why don't we just try to find our kicker for the next, hopefully, 8+ years, and just invest a draft pick in one. I mean, it's a 6th-round pick. I would even be down to throw a 5th-round pick at one. Just make sure you get the best one, and we can roll forward with that. Now, lastly, in round 7, I had the Jaguars taking Jaylen Simpson, safety out of Auburn, and this is just mostly about trying to find special teamers, okay? This isn't necessarily about find a guy that's going to start. It's just about finding cheap core special teamers, and I think Jaylen Simpson could potentially fill that role. Now, that is my mock draft. Shred me in the comment sections. Feel free to. But speaking of mock drafts, guys, tomorrow on the Bleacher Report app, something really fun is happening from 2 o'clock p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Bleacher Report is actually holding a live interactive mock draft where each team is going to have a representative, and I will be the team representing the Jaguars, and I'm going to be making a pick at number 17 overall. And essentially, when the Jaguars pick, or any other team in the AFC South picks, there's going to be 4 AFC South people on the screen talking to you guys. And, after the Titans make a pick, I'll, of course, tell them it's a terrible pick. because why not? It's the Titans. And when the Jaguars pick, I'll be hopefully taking a good player, and hopefully Brian Thomas Jr. is there for me. Otherwise, we'll have to pivot somewhere else. So definitely join me over there. Should be a lot of fun. Download the Bleach Report app and come support me. You know what I mean? Come throw in some nice words for me. That would be greatly appreciated. And also, guys, this video is sponsored by BetUS. So huge shout out to them. And with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Drop a like on your way out, and go Jags.